Alright, it's day 47. It's the third episode of growing Swiss chard from seeds. In the very last episode, I said on day 46 that I wouldn't need to water every other day anymore because it seemed like the plants were making some progress and they're getting established. Well, look at that. The two that are further away from the rail, 3 plants actually, are wilting, and the ones that are closer to the rail are standing straight up. In comparison, I mean, there is a little bit of wilt in that smaller one that's closer to the rail with white stalks. So I think the difference mostly is due to the sun. I know the fact that there's 2 plants doesn't help because they're right next to each other. Their root systems are competing for the 4 plants that are wilting, the ones that are closer to my watering pail right now. Those are, I don't know why this plant chooses to spawn 2 plants from the same seed. One of my viewers said they can even give off 3 plants, so I don't get the logic behind that. I'd rather see 3 seeds or 2 seeds spawn separate plants in more spaced out locations. There must be some kind of natural reason over time for these to have developed that way. It's something I haven't experienced with other plants actually. I can't recall one other growing series where one seed would generate 2 or 3 plants. So it's 32 minutes later and turgor pressure is partially restored. Everything is perking up, although by watering yet again I'm adding a lot of water weight to some of these leaves that are drooping or more horizontally inclined. So that's the other drawback of having 2 plants spawn from the same seed. They're going to push each other apart and hence be more low-lying to the ground when they're wet like that and have leaves touching the wet dirt. That could promote rot. So this is 5.5 hours later. It's still day 47. This is what I see every night when I look out onto my balcony. The leaves are fully erect. They look like pitcher plants rather than Swiss chard in this kind of lighting. I know the videography is horrible at night. I'm just using a handheld mirror to reflect whatever light comes from the parking lot and the balcony light back onto the backs of these leaves. And I should have used a flashlight, but I just wanted to see what the quality would be. I generally don't like filming at night for this and many other reasons because the video quality is so poor. So it's day 49. I'm adding more clay loam that I got from the hills in the same spot to prevent further episodes of wilting during the afternoons when the sun hits. And I know by adding more clay loam I'll bury some of these petioles and hopefully not the shoot apical meristem, although this is not one of those plants where you're having a shoot apical meristem that keeps advancing. It just has a very, very short stem and it sends out all these petioles that grow thicker and thicker, and they have this beautiful coloring except for that one that I was just handling that has very pale or white petioles. So it seems like the petioles are what gets long and the leaves are what gets big and long, and the stem, the main trunk, is basically buried in this case by dirt. I've also buried the cotyledon in front, and that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I'm assuming the cotyledons are just going to rot away. I'll try my best to prop them up like that, but I can't guarantee that they'll survive. I think when leaves are partially wet all the time, they're just going to rot and the plant will try to grow a little taller and send new foliage up for fresh air, but it definitely won't like this phenomenon that I'm creating where leaves are buried in dirt. Some plants do respond very favorably, other plants, who knows. For potato plants, people always instruct on the internet to start low in your pot if you're growing them in a vessel and then just keep piling on more and more dirt around the base of the main stem, so that way you get potatoes growing higher and higher in your mound of dirt that's getting higher and higher. So I'll try my best not to drown out the bases of these petioles and whatever leaf primordia that are emerging from the smaller ones, but if they're sacrificed and lost in this exercise, then that's fine with me too, because I've got these 3 main plants that are doing so well, and maybe I'm a little bit behind schedule, and by 60 days my Swiss chard plants will be smaller than other people's, but I think I could definitely eat them if I wanted to right now. It's just that I would get a lot more vegetation to eat later on, so I'm definitely going to let this ride. And that first water spraying was just to make sure that the clay loam wouldn't go airborne, as it's very prone to do. Clay particles have these electrostatic properties that set them apart from silt and sand, and when they're very, very dry, they hardly absorb water like right now, but once they do absorb water, then they stay a lot wetter than the other two components of soil. So it's day 51, and I haven't seen any wilting since. So that was the third application of clay loam. Assumed by showering from the top, more of it went down there to stick to the roots and coat all the sphagnum peat moss and twigs and bark and wood chips and whatnot that comprise the bulk of the medium that's in this potting mix that's been sterilized. So I'm really hoping that the third time's a charm, that this problem has been solved, and I don't want to ever see this afternoon wilt again when the sunlight hits these plants directly, because dehydration on a daily basis is just really, really stressful for plants. They should have firmly established root systems and proper medium, which I didn't provide. I think potting mix is just a very poor starter medium for plant growing in general. Well, it might be good for certain types of plants, certain species, but maybe it's not good for others like Swiss chard and many of the other plants that have grown. So far it seems like the three smaller plants here, this one's a pair of twins, they're doing fine, and they haven't just rotted away due to me adding a third helping of clay loam on top. So it's day 54, and I watered again, but it seems like the cotyledons there are turning into mush, but that may happen anyway regardless of what you do. That happened with many of my other plant series in the past. At some point the cotyledons just outlived their usefulness. I'm sure they could become giant leaves, but they're low-lying, so once it rains or you water on top, and they'll just be stuck in the mud and very, very prone to rot. Most plant species, especially with leafy greens like this, just can't tolerate leaves that are lying on wet dirt or soil, and they'll just rot away or grow powdery mildew, mold, or whatever. In most cases, you can do your best and they'll just sort of fade into a yellow or a white and just die away. So it's day 58, and I finally moved. I've been in that apartment on the other side of this complex for, I don't know, has it been 6 or 7 years? And finally I moved to another unit. I got a good deal, and as you can see, there are all these beautiful banana trees and queen palms growing all around. This queen palm's right outside my bedroom window, so it's a relatively secluded area compared to last time. You won't see all these people and cars going around in the background, and it'll be a lot less noisier. So for the moment being, I've placed my plants like this. It's been a lot of work to set everything up, and I had to gingerly carry these one by one into the car and very slowly drive over. I'm not sure I could manage to do all of this if I had a long distance move at some point, but yeah, I definitely won't be staying in any apartments for 6 or 7 years ever again, I don't think. So if you're clamoring for a change in scenery, you definitely got one, and this may be one that doesn't last very long either, so the scenery will change, and hopefully for the better. This is in the morning, so since 7:30 a.m. I woke up and I saw the light was just blasting off my plants. Morning sun is a lot more gentle than afternoon sun. So I changed the configuration of everything, and I utilizing my 2 tables again, the wooden one that I finished myself, and the glass one. So this gives a much better vantage point for filming. Having it on a table, it's a lot easier, and you can see these leaves are a darker green now, and they're almost the size of my hand. Not quite as impressive yet as my cutting for the raspberry. It's right behind this. I'm coming out with an episode update on that pretty soon too, and those leaves are enormous. So as you can see, the cotyledons are going to be gone eventually, and maybe I'll lose a few of those very low-lying starter leaves, true leaves as well, but none of that matters as long as I have all this beautiful foliage. I'm assuming it's just going to get much bigger, taller, and darker over the next week or two, and I don't know if I can have a harvest and cooking demo by the next episode or the one after that, but I've definitely decided to let it run past day 60, which is the average time to harvest quoted on the packet. Thanks for watching.